Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Comic Source. I'm your host, Jace, returning creator, here to talk about a recent book he had come out from Mad Cave. My pleasure to welcome Rich Douek back to the show. Rich, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Jace.
Yeah, so last time you were on, we talked about a couple of fantastical stories. One set in the ocean, one set on the road to hell, if you will. This one's much more grounded, much more down to earth, a phone call away, which I don't think you could tell the story, maybe elements of it, but not really some of the real detail and the context that you added to the story. You couldn't tell it except in today with social media, with reality TV, with that sort of thing. And we'll get into all that. But for anyone who's not familiar, what's the elevator pitch? How do you describe this story?
Yeah, so a phone call away is about a family whose daughter was kidnapped when she was like I think 7 years old, and it became a high profile media case, and they kind of rode that to being social media influencers and very popular. And they had a second daughter, and things seemed to be going great for them. But their world kind of falls apart when the second daughter is kidnapped um, in what seems to be a copycat case years and years later. And this story is basically about unraveling the mystery of both kidnappings and who's behind it.
Yeah, it's amazing, everybody. Fast paced. There's lots of twists, lots of turns. We're not going to spoil it for you. We're gonna, because you got to read it for yourself. And again, I highly recommend it. But we'll give a little hint here or there. But I want to talk about just the coming up with the idea. And this, I mean, it's fascinating. True crime is fascinating to me, and more so than just because I know it fascinates a lot of people.
Hmm.
But what's even more interesting to me than true crime is sort of the fandom of true crime. Like I
Yeah.
just recently found out, and my wife already knew this. Like there's Crime Con that travels around the country. It's like a comic book convention, but for true crime. I had no idea. So, what is your interest in it? Were you aware of that? What do you think it is about these true stories that really draw people in?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of my first brush with true crime was, I think a lot of people's was the Serial podcast, and
Okay.
that was looking into the case of Adnan Syed in Baltimore. And it's just it's fascinating. Like, it was a fascinating case, and um, you know, he's since gone on to be acquitted, but things keep going back and forth. But I think the reason why true crime is captivating is because it's something that really kind of shows how much storytelling really shapes how we feel about things, you know?
Mm,
Like, there is, not to say that there isn't truth and a true version of things that happen, but by sort of like the way you arrange the facts can really build a case one way or build a case another way. And you know, I think when we're talking about something like uh, a murder trial, or like a court case or things like that, like, we're all kind of conditioned to think that there's sort of like an objective truth to everything. And what true crime does is it sort of peels that away a little bit and shows you just how much of it is competing narratives.
yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And I'm reminded. Have you ever seen that movie with John Travolta, Basic? Samuel Jackson in it as well.
I don't think so. Uh,
It's not the most original idea, and there's other movies that do it as well. But this one's set on an army base. There's like five or six different characters, and they all tell the same event, the same kind of events, that take place over kind of an afternoon,
right,
and they all from their same perspective. So the story, the narrative, sort of changes based on who's telling the story. And there's one
right.
line that's repeated by John Travolta and one other character in the movie, and it kind of leads to this like breaking the case or whatever. And they the way the statement they have, they're like, well, I can sort of something like this, but I can convince you of everything. All you got to do is tell the story right, and it's that part that tell the story right is the part that kind of breaks the case because Connie Nielsen realizes they're using the exact same phrase and they're not supposed to really know each other, uh, so that's what I'm reminded of when you're talking about this. When you want to talk about guilt or innocence or truth or what really happened, it's all about telling the story in the way that supports what you believe, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, the thing that with like true crime and things like that, where like you do have these like wild things that happen, you know what I mean? Like, you have murders, you have like, heists and things like that, and they are like interesting stories. And I think realizing that they are like, that their stories is what makes them kind of like entertaining. It's like, but it is kind of like a little bit of, I don't know if like the best term for it is, but it's like a monkey's paw kind of thing where it's like,
Hmm.
it's like you're getting your wish for this like great story, but it's like you're forming an opinion about like people's like real, I'm talking about like true crime here, not like true crime style. Like a phone call away is not based on like a true case.
Hmm.
Like, like when people, you know, form an opinion about like, like a real court case or a real mystery or something, it's like that's kind of like treading into like dangerous territory, I think, because, you know, again, like you have to like realize that it's narrative, and you may not be getting like all the facts, even though you might think you're, some kind of like genius amateur detective or something, you might not know everything going on. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's that whole idea of court of public opinion, and I would say
Yeah.
maybe the sort of biggest crime case probably in my lifetime would have been the O.J. Simpson
Yeah.
uh, kind of thing, and how everybody would be they would ask you, do you think he's guilty? Do you not? Device or whatever, and I would always say I have no idea because I wasn't there and I don't have the facts, and even the people in the courtroom might not have had all the facts. Like nobody really knows except the people that were there. So you got to be
Yeah.
careful when you're yeah, when you're forming these opinions, you're right. But when it comes time, okay, you're interested in true crime, you think it's a fascinating place to start. You come up with the idea for this story, and one of the things is, you mentioned the Walkers. They become these influencers. They have their own reality show. It's almost like a little creepy. They're profiting off the fact that their daughter was kidnapped or murdered or what have you. So as much as everybody's beloved and feel sorry for him or whatever, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm always cynical. I'm like, it feels a little bit wrong or what have you, and then things go sideways from there. But in terms of building this out, because like I said, fast paced and a lot of twists and turns, did it come together really easily for you with that fast paced and building the complex story, or was it something you had to go back and kind of rework? Give us some idea of how it all came together.
Yeah. I mean, it all it all made sense in my head. I guess that's kind of the best way to put it. But I knew I had like kind of like a general idea of like who the kidnapper was, what the circumstances were that led to the kidnapping. And then, but there were like a few twists and turns that kind of like actually surprised me, like as I was writing them. Like there's again, it's like how do we talk about this without like ruining it? But say like there's a character who's a reporter, Nina Hendrick, in there. And I think what she ultimately does, like towards the end, was like kind of a surprise even to me. But
Mm,
it's just like as I was writing it, it just sort of occurred to me
made sense.
this is how it could play out, and I wrote it in, and yeah, it just worked. Um, I think like one of like my I guess you could say like guiding lights with when I'm thinking about like how to approach a story is I like I've studied like David Mamet a lot.
Hmm.
David Mamet, especially for like crime stuff like this, I think he's like a great resource. But one of the things he said was that really like resonated with me. Uh, and he was talking about like drama, but I think it's applicable to like mysteries as well. He said that if you want to have like a great ending, it has to be both surprising and inevitable. So, like, kind of what I took from that was that it basically has to kind of like recontextualize the whole story. So it's like if I've done my job right, like when you get to that page that reveals like what happened, you're like, oh shit, like
Of
I
course.
I didn't think of like I did like yeah, like that surprised me that it played out this way, but now looking back, I can't see how it would have ended any other way. Like, and I think, hopefully I've done my job there with the ending,
Oh yeah, yeah,
like telegraph it
a
through.
hundred
Yeah.
percent. You threw enough curveballs that I wasn't really expecting it, but then when it happens, you're like, well, yeah, of course, that's what makes the most sense. Which was just awesome because again, it's moving so fast, uh,
Yeah.
and there's so many different characters, so many different threads and twists and turns. When it all comes together, not only does it make perfect sense, it's so satisfying that everything, all these different threads that you don't necessarily think are related, you brought them all together really well. And so yeah, you really feel like it's a complete story. I would be shocked if anybody can pick this up and start reading it and not just like read it all in one sitting.
Yeah. Well, I think like like the funny thing is when my copies came to the house, my wife was looking at it and she was like, "Oh, what's this one?" And I was like, "Oh, like because she doesn't really read comics." And I was like, "But she loves like true crime stuff." And I was like, "You actually might like this one because, there's no like wizards, there's no dragons, there's no spaceships. Like it's just like a crime story, kind of like the stuff you like to watch on TV." And she's like, "Oh, okay, maybe I'll check it out." And she actually read it like cover to cover in like one sitting
Yeah.
and that she really dug it. So I took that as probably the a way more important than like a star rating on like some website somewhere.
Yeah. 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 If the wife likes it, you know you're doing something right.
Yeah.
The other thing that really helps set the tone, just fantastic art from Russell Mark
Oh
Olson.
yeah.
Just captures the feel from being able to do, the lighthearted at the beginning with, hey, we have this reality TV and our life is great or whatever, to the twists and the turns and the emotion when Megan goes missing, the second daughter goes missing, and all the suspicions about who might be behind it, whatever start to arise. Was he somebody you had in mind for this? Was he somebody you knew? Was it somebody that Mad Cave suggested?
Yeah, actually Mike Martz at Mag Cave suggested him. I was not familiar with his work beforehand, but Mike sent over a bunch of samples. I think Mike was familiar with his work, um, and as I was looking at them, I was like, oh wow, this guy's like super talented. Um, so I was totally on board with bringing him on, and I think he just did a great job. And it's like you say, like I think part of it is like like he draws it, but he also like colors it. So
Hmm.
he is kind of like 100% in control and very good at like setting the tone and changing the tone and using colors really wisely to like change the mood. And like you said, like this is this is a story that goes from like swings, like it swings from like happy to scary to sad, like, and I think he just does a really great job of getting that across. And he also designed the cover, which I love. Like we talked about that a little bit, but I just love the whole like, the broken phone screen with like the lines and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just amazing, and of course, everybody, the title, "A Phone Call Away," that recurs a few times in the story, and when you read it, it really makes sense. Um, so once Mark Olson came on board, in terms of kind of building the world and the look, did you guys go back and forth a little bit on like initial character designs, or did you just kind of turn him loose, or give us an idea of the initial collaboration?
Yeah, well, I think what I sent him initially, like he got the script, obviously, but then also just I did maybe a paragraph for all the principal characters of like, kind of how I saw them in my head. Not so much like thing. It wasn't stuff like, oh, like uh, this one has to have blonde hair or physical attributes. It was more just like kind of, what they're about, what drives them, what,
Hmm.
like the kind of circumstances like that would it could help inform his design for like Raul, like he's like supposed to be kind of like a little bit washed up and an ex-alcoholic, and so I made sure to note that, and that like that kind of has to like show like in his face, in his eyes of like
Hmm.
like just that kind of like tired, worn out kind of feeling to him. And then yeah, and then he sent me a few different options, like character designs, like maybe um like three or four depending on the character, and also depending on which ones he was really, had a feeling for.
Hmm.
Um and then we would yeah, and then it was just a dialogue. It was like, like, oh, I like, there were a few where it was like, oh, like I like this one, or he likes this one, or then it's like maybe like, hey, can we take uh this face but use this hair, or like I
Right.
like this but can we like change the haircut, or things like that, and it was just like a process like that. uh you know um Chaz and Mike, our editors at Mad Cave, were involved into of like, like being able to chime in. But yeah, like we really just all got together and just talked about like how we saw it and what we liked.
Yeah. What was the experience like working with Mad Cave? They're really kind of on the rise and really
Yeah.
seem to be putting out some fantastic stories, this among them.
Yeah, it was great. It's my first book with them, but not planning on it being my last. Like it was just a great experience, um, just throughout. Like, I mean, not even like I'm talking about like, the production process and stuff like that. Everything went very smoothly, but also like you know, talking to not even just like the editorial people, but like the marketing people and the PR people, like just like everybody over there is really nice and just like a joy to work with. So hoping that as they rise, I can rise with them
Yeah,
or
yeah. I mean, it's
help them rise as much as I can. Yeah.
yeah, it's been my experience. Everybody over there, they're really just fans of comics. They just love
Yeah.
comics. Mark London, Mark Irwin, Mike Marks. I mean, they're all just fans of the medium. But I am curious. We talked about this really being, and your wife as an example, being a story. Man, I got to read it all in one sitting. I'm so glad this wasn't released like in issues, but as a complete story. Graphic novel that kind of stands on its own. Was that something that you wanted for the story? Was that something that Mad Cave suggested, like just based on kind of the way the story was structured, that this is the way you wanted it to be presented?
No, that actually came from Mad Cave. That was their plan almost from the beginning. And I think part of it was that they saw that this book probably has a lot more crossover into like the book market maybe than your
Gotcha.
weekly
Yeah.
comic market, because it
Hmm.
is like, it is a mystery story. It is like, not like there's no like superhero showdowns or, alien invasions or anything like that. And I think there's just something about the format that like lends itself to like having it be like one volume being the preferred reading format. I mean, even if you want to talk about like crime comics and who, the luminaries are, like, Brubaker and Phillips, and like
Right.
they use all their crime comics like just single volumes. So I think maybe we're taking a page like from their book. That being said, and it did affect how I wrote it, because I knew that, I like wrote it with the eye towards like just somebody being able to like read it. But that being said, like I did kind of like in my head structure it so that like if they did change their mind and wanted to break it up,
Yeah.
like I made sure like all the kind of like natural story breaks like fell like around where they needed to be, like if like there was like some last minute decision to like release issues.
Well, I imagine as a comic writer, you've been doing it so long now, it's almost like habit, right? To give those cliffhangers, right around page 20, page 40,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but the nice thing about it being all one volume is that like you get a little leeway where it's like if it's like a single issue and you know you have 20 pages of story, like you got to get all your business done in 20 pages. Where it's like if you're writing for like one volume and like let's just for argument's sake let's call them like chapters, right?
Mhm.
So if like chapter 2 needs to be like 24 pages and chapter 3 needs it only needs 20, it's like you can do that. You can kind of like mess around with like it doesn't have to be like equal
Right.
chunks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get to tell the best story that you
Yeah.
can because there's not an artificial stopping point. Like, how do I squeeze
Yeah.
it in and have to truncate and that sort of thing? Yeah, awesome, awesome. Well, again, I highly recommend everybody. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to Mad Cave's website. You can go check out the book there. It's again, it's out, it's available. Get it from Amazon. Ask your local comic shop to order it. That sort of thing. But yeah, really pay attention to what Mad Cave's doing because they have some fantastic work. As far as you, Rich, what else do you have anything else coming up that you can tease?
Yeah, I actually have a story in Batman Brave and the Bold, the November issue that I did with Stevan Subic. It's Batman versus Mr. Zaz. Had a lot of fun writing it. It's the first time I ever got to write Batman, so very excited about to get it out there. And then in December, we've got trade paperbacks for Heart Piercer and Drive Like Hell both coming out. So, if you need stocking stuffers, you can get some graphic novel size stockings and fill them with Dark Horse books. And then that's about it that I can talk about, but I do have like, other stuff coming up so that I'm working on right now.
Fantastic. Well, everybody, again, highly recommend Rich's work, whether it's Heart Piercer or Drive Like Hell or A Phone Call Away. They're all fantastic stories. Remind everybody where they can find you online, Rich. If they have any questions or want to follow along, know when these things are dropping, they can give you a
Yeah.
follow.
Yeah, you can you can go to rduek.com. That's my website, and there's a newsletter sign up for my Substack newsletter. Um, but I'm also on X and Instagram and Blue Sky, like all of those. Like if you see R Douek and somebody that vaguely looks like this, it's me. But it's R Douek is the thing to remember. RDOUEK. I have to
Yeah, and
spell.
I'll put a link to the website and the social media in the show notes as well, everybody. So if you're having trouble finding them,
Yeah.
just go and click there. So
But yeah, like I love answering questions. So if anybody has any questions about the books or writing or anything, just shoot them over and I'll do my best to answer them.
yeah, kind of on that note, I know A Phone Call Away hasn't been out for an extended period of time. It was pretty recent that it came out. Did you get feedback? Did you have people reaching out and telling you how fantastic it was?
Yeah, quite a few actually. I mean, not like it wasn't like a ton of people, but I think like all the reviews that it got were really good. It got a review in Kirkus reviews, which I understand in the book world is
That's a big deal. Yeah.
like a big deal and like a very tough reviewer, but they actually really liked it. I mean, the reviewer really liked it, so that felt really good. And yeah, I just gotten just generally like really good feedback from it. Like even now, it's like starting to trickle in. I think there was like just like a blog post the other day that Russell found that he sent over where they were just like raving about it. So it's been really nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, well deserved. Again, it's a fantastic story from Russell's work on the art to the writing. Again, like I said, you can't put it down. Your wife is the proof of that. It's just a fantastic story. So anyway, great to catch up, Rich. Great to talk about this story. I'm a fan, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me. And yeah, we'll talk next time I have a new book out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And of course, we'll be covering the Batman Brave and the Bold when it comes out, like we do every week on our DC Spotlight, everybody. So
Awesome.
more talk of Rich's work to come.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
shoot me a link to that when it comes out.
oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely will. So that's gonna do it for this episode, everybody. Again, link in the show notes. Go check out Mad Cave. Check out A Phone Call Away. give Rich a follow on social media so you can let him know what you thought of the book after you've read it. And we appreciate you taking the time, whether you're listening on the audio only, whether you're checking us out on YouTube. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, guys. Take care.